So what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this interview. We have Julian Burka here. This is a really interesting background that Julian has gone through, and I'd like to tell it all if you're cool with it, Julian. We're going to talk about his ups and downs. We're going to talk about how 4 different times now he has 4 different marketing agencies. Okay, I don't know how many times have you gone up and down in terms of you mentioned you hit 100K a month and then
I've literally lost all of my money and all of my revenue in a business venture. Now it's 4 times with COVID. And this is in the last 2.5 years, so it's been a roller coaster.
Nice. Yeah, so to clarify that, so long story short, he has 4 different individual marketing agencies, 4 different times throughout running a marketing agency. He's gone up to 100K a month and then back down from different circumstances. And that'll sometimes happen. I myself, I was at 220K a month at one time. We had 27 staff, 3 offices. We scaled all the way back down. And then within like a month and a half, we were already making more revenue with less staff, less offices, completely different set of clients. It was an incredible experience. So long story short, like sometimes that happens. Other times, like he was recently impacted by the pandemic and that caused him to lose clients. And then this set of skills that you guys learn as an agency owner and as a marketer, it's really fast to be able to just get going again, pivot industries, pivot to a different niche. He's even bought out another agency owner with an opportunity to get equity in that agency owner's deal to take over all of that person's clients because they weren't able to deliver anymore. So there's just a lot here that we're going to kind of dive into, and I'm just going to ask some questions to kind of bring it all out. What is it that you did like to get started? Like, were you already running a marketing agency before you got into the program, or were you like working a job?
So,
where were you at?
Yeah, so I was as green could get. So I was a personal trainer. I'd been working with Lifetime Fitness for a couple of years, and I think like anybody that has even a mildly entrepreneurial bone in their body, like I got so upset looking at what I made versus what I brought in, because I had done commission work all my life. I was producing $9,000 a month for Lifetime, and I was working maybe 16 hours a day to be lucky to see $4,000 hit my bank account at the end of the month. I eventually decided that I'm like, I'm just going to leave. I'm going to rent out a space. I'm going to build a gym. I'm going to sink Lifetime as an organization. Yeah, I'm going to trump that shit. that whole dream started with me going to a CrossFit box and renting it out so I could teach the clients that came with me. And I quickly learned that I'm like, one of the things I didn't know in my grand old business plan at that time was I didn't know how to get clients. At Lifetime, I would just sit at the front desk. There'd be 2,000 check-ins a day. And I would just be like, hi, do you want to try a free training session today? Did 2,000 times. And that's how I made my money. Well, when you're at a CrossFit box and there's a member base of 100 people, there's no traffic. So I started buying courses and looking online to figure out how to do it through social media. There was a girl I worked with, Valia, who was an Instagram influencer. She came to Lifetime, posted on Instagram twice, had a $10,000 book of business. So she made me aware that digital could generate business. I think I spent $12,000 on a bunch of snake oil before I came across you. The funny thing is, you had your whole presentation on this badass product to start an agency. But what got me was you had a bonus of Facebook Ads 101. I'm like, how the fuck this agency shit, dude? I just want Facebook Ads 101. And then I got in. I was starting to learn. I started seeing, these kids that I thought I was smarter than, I thought I was better than, making more money than me, like literally replacing my monthly income in a single sale. And I just had a come to Jesus moment where I'm like, I'm in the wrong industry, dude. Yeah, it wasn't motivating for me. It made me upset. I'm like, I don't think you deserve to make $4,000 a month when I'm, on one sale. Like, what the fuck? That's not okay. Yep. Like, does that really happen? This was a one-off. And then it happened like 10 times. I'm like, all right, I need to pay attention to this. But what happened was one of my clients was the COO of a area developer for a fitness franchise. And she came in one day and she was complaining about their social media marketing. I was taking what you taught me in the course and applying it for my own business. So I said, you know what? Let me just send you some free information. That turned into me sitting down with them, and the guy I told these multimillionaires what they needed to do with their Facebook and their Instagram, and they're like, how much do you want to do this for us? So in my head, I'm like, these chumps are making $4,000, $5,000. So he's like, all right. He pulls out a contract, signs it right there. And I run home and I start an LLC. And then I sent you a DM and I'm like, hey, bro, I'm making $5,000 a month. I've never ran a Facebook ad in my life. Now I need to run ads for a $50,000 a month guy. What do I do? Yeah, that's how good. It started. Yeah.
Commit first and figure the rest out later,
Yeah, 100%.
That's sweet. So after you replaced your income, because you said you were making 4K and you closed a 5K deal, what'd you do? Did you quit your job? Did you go back and just
Yeah, I
double
did.
down and get more
So
clients, or what'd you do?
yeah, so I was living with my ex at the time.
Mhm.
Thought she was the one. She needed to get a job somewhere else. I'm like, oh, I can work by my laptop now. Like I made it. So I left my old personal training book of business. You know, we moved out somewhere together. And yeah, I mean, I had saved up some money, so I was, you know, obviously I transacted with you, and you know, you were helping me learn. I think it was like the first 3 or 4 months that you were really hands on, and you know, frankly, just taught me how to do Facebook ads. And do it mediocrely well at the time, because it's not a lot of time to teach somebody to manage a 50 grand a month budget.
Sounds like a lot of money before like you get in the game and then you realize just not a lot.
Yeah, you know, now that I look on it, when people say that, like I don't even blink. It was definitely, and the thing is, like I'm really like I honestly feel like that interaction really paved the way for me, because you know my first deal was not a poverty deal, and that's the one lesson I took, you know, from the course. That was a big deal. If I had closed it on a 500 to 1,000 or a free trial, I would have never been able to afford somebody who had skills to come in and show me
Gotcha.
how to do it. So
Yeah,
that
so
was the
many
one
people
thing that I
undercharge.
did right. And then at that point, you know, the marketing budget's arbitrary. It's just your job to, you know, at the end of the day, marketing, there's no guarantees. You have the aptitude to problem solve. It's really what somebody's buying.
Yeah, and
So yeah.
you mentioned something there in terms of you know, after you got in, like you still didn't really know what to do after you got your first client. In that process, like what'd you rely on the most? I like to find that, you know, the course value itself is there for you to rely on and go through, and obviously it teaches you what to do. But I think another big element that I constantly hear from students is the community itself, to be able to go in and like ask real-time questions. Did you leverage both, one or the other, or was it something completely different?
So I want to answer that in two phases, because it's the people who are new. I remember having this attitude where I thought that there was a course that had the answers for me.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, the course is fantastic, and the value there is tremendous. The course by itself it's like going to college for a class. Like it's theory. The theory doesn't mean anything until you figure out how to execute that and what that feels like. Until
True.
it's tangible, doesn't mean much.
Yeah, very true.
So the community for me was, you know, it's worth a million times what the actual program costs. And I think I've written up to date $88,000 just partnering up with people in the community as well. So both
Nice.
from an ROI standpoint, like the ROI has been extremely clear for me being in the community, but from helping me get started in those initial days, having access to you was tremendous, and having access to everybody else who was making the same fuck ups that I was, and you know, maybe was 1, 2 steps ahead for me. And it's like, yeah, like when lead forms came out, everyone was saying landing pages are stupid, and this guy, like these guys around me were like, you know, we're not really doing like 100 grand a month with these guys. Lead forms are doing really good. You should try it out, Julian. It was small tips like that that really kept me like on the cutting edge. And I talked to the client recently, and I asked him, I'm like, I think you knew that I was a novice probably a couple months in. Yeah. And he's like, oh yeah. I asked him, like, why did you keep me? He's like, because in the first 3 to 6 months, the exponential change and how articulate you were talking about this and the proactiveness you had in solving the problem made it very clear that I was going to be successful with you. That's 100% the feedback I was getting from the community, and, you know, learning from their lessons as they were working on solving the same problems I was.
I'm always glad to hear that. I mean, I get tons of value out of the community myself. I find random tools all the time that people go in there and post, and I think it's sweet. Yeah. And so if you flash back to the time where you mentioned like you invested a lot into snake oil courses that just sucked and didn't get results. You found this program and you managed to get into it, and it did start helping you getting results in terms of community and the course value. I found a lot of limiting beliefs when I first got started with my marketing agency, and even before I chose to do that, just in terms of what it took to kind of mentally undo, just to like
Oh my God,
embrace
yeah.
the opportunity of being a business owner. You know, like, did you struggle with that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the only good news for me is that I'm a stubborn asshole. So like, I hate losing so much that like I will burn the world down for me to get my fucking win. That's the only
Good
reason I
attitude.
think. Not healthy. Don't recommend it. But I mean, it's just without going into like my whole lifelong story. I've been extremely competitive in that sense of motivation. For me, that's what kept me going for a long time. But I had to come to terms with that. I had to literally just undo who I was as an individual. The business wasn't going to grow until I grew. And I think, you know, the thing that I got wrong for a long time, I quickly understood like the idea isn't important. You don't necessarily need a unique idea. But I always thought, I'm like, all right, well, there's an SOP to success. Like, you know, there's a certain way that there's a script that's always going to sell. There's an ad that's always going to generate a click. Like
Yeah.
I still had the magic pill mentality.
Hmm.
And I'm still doing it today. Like I always thought that was an individual with extreme ownership, but I've really started to learn what extreme ownership is. Every single mistake usually comes back to you had a limiting or defensive belief and you acted wrong on it. And a
Yeah.
great example of that is, through COVID, one of my ventures, I have a business partner. The guy was been an incredible asset in terms of acquisitions. However, when we got into COVID, he really contracted and he shrunk and he's like, we're going to wait out the storm. And all my red flags were going off. I knew that it wasn't going to work like that. That doesn't mean just because certain people are losing that there aren't people that are, winning big. This is our time to shine. There's an opportunity everywhere. I didn't have that mentality for a long time until I went from zero to, getting back up a couple times to understand that was true. And yeah. So to answer your question, I had to undo a lot. I'm still undoing it. I'm still unlearning lessons. I'm still unlearning efficiencies. I'm still realizing that I'm an egotistical asshole in a lot of the aspects of my business. I have to swallow that pride if I'm really going to get to the point that I don't have a 16-hour job, but I actually own assets that produce me cash.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and you mentioned, I mean, I'd love to touch on this. So the 4 different times that you've scaled up and then had to scale back down, the most recent one being from Corona.
Yeah.
Like what happened? Did you?
Let's talk about Corona. That one's fun. So one of these agencies, right? 98% of our book of business were fitness franchises. All of our locations except for 3 being in Michigan and New York.
Wow.
Now, to date, as we're doing this interview right now, Michigan and New York are still closed and locked down.
Yeah. Gyms
have not been open. So 98% of our revenue was completely wiped out from this business. We have 6 people like that were staff. I've never been concerned about, my income. I can go get a job at Starbucks to pay bills, God forbid. There's always a way. But I was concerned about these other 5 people, because they depended upon me to pay their bills and eat. So
Very true.
yeah, that was really terrifying. So what we did was, one, just because these guys aren't making money doesn't mean they don't have money. You have to redo the value proposition for them. So we took our biggest contract and we made a deal that said, if you guys pay us through COVID at the exact same rate, we'll credit back to you afterward. But what we're going to do to make it sweeter is you would have canceled the service with us. You're going to need a lot of help on managing all of the inquiries that are coming in from all of your locations. And you do need to be putting out content. This is a retention play and you don't want to spend the money. So, let us do it for you essentially for free. And we're going to credit you, for tying us over during this time. That saved all of our employees. That provided the payroll for all of them. I was still not making money. And, I still want to do $83K a month again by the end of this year. And my take home, not gross agency production, my net income. So I'm like, all right, I have to figure this shit out. What do I do? I'm making $0 a month and I still have bills and stuff. First, I went to other agencies that were doing appointment setting and lead generation that were either in markets, in other markets that weren't closed or in other countries that had less restrictions. Nice. And I started bartering different deals with them. Over the last year, I've been using a software called High Level to generate these appointment setting and lead nurturing systems that work really, really well for brick and mortar. And this is still the issue in local lead gen agencies. They don't have that. So I went out to these guys. I'm like, let me build it for you. You're gonna pay me $1,500 a month. So I wrote a couple of those, and I'm still consulting with these guys. And I replaced a normal full-time income in 9 days of outreach on that offer. Nice. Then in addition to that, I started reaching out to private coaches, people who, now, like, 'cause we had 1 million personal trainers with our clients that now no longer, were working with the company, but they were still doing stuff on the side. So I reached out to these guys and I made a couple of deals, a lot of them performance-based. And, we got up to a point that I replaced another $2,000 a month working with a handful of private coaches. Nice. Then I made an equity deal with a guy that had a bigger book of business with these private coaches. I leveraged the success I had with 2 or 3. I leveraged the success of my agency. I got 25% of his book of business. That gave me another $2,800. Then I moved into recovery lounges and I moved into spas a little bit more, not like med spas like Botox and stuff, but like, cryotherapy, infrared therapy, because physical therapy in Cairo got opened up and those businesses also got opened up. I created this really, really fucking sick high level setup. and they paid us performance-based, $0 retainer, X dollars per appointment we get. And I took a guy that was a $500 retainer, and I made $3,000 off of him in a single month. So all of that, like the resourcefulness there. Yeah. And so like the shit's wild because like, I've been, to be honest, until a week ago, like my head has been like 100 feet in the dirt, just like eating shit every day to bring back revenue. And I just stepped back, like I think it was 2 weeks ago. I popped open an Excel sheet. I'm like, oh shit, I'm back above 10 grand a month.
Nice.
Huh, nice. Like I had to work hard for maybe like 3 weeks. And the only reason I could do that is because like one, now I know that I can. Two, I understand that all you have to do is sell a solution. And three, now I understand the fulfillment. Like once you have mastery on certain really fundamental skills, fulfillment's very versatile. If tomorrow for you, personality brands went to shit and they didn't exist anymore, it's fine. You have a zillion different ways that you could possibly pivot. And that's what I've found at this point. The skills I've learned are no longer one-dimensional, but I can really serve anybody at this point. So yeah, drumming up revenue was easy.
So how long? So you lost literally 98% of your book of business you mentioned. So 98% of your revenue completely gone from COVID. How long did it take for you to get back? You mentioned what are you at right now?
Yeah, so that business venture was at around 44K a month pre-COVID, and
take it to near zero.
Yeah, well, we went to zero. We had a $500 a month small deal that wasn't impacted in like Alabama or something.
Might as well be zero, yeah.
Yeah, like if $500 was paying nobody's salary, that's a couple dinners,
How long did it take to get back?
So, I mean, the agency right now is back up to, last I checked, it's 19,000 a month, which is pretty solid. Still, majority of our book of business is still stopped. But we were able to restructure some stuff and acquire some other clients outside of Michigan and New York. So yeah, we're at about 50%. It might not sound like a lot, but that's a really big deal because that's all of our staff being paid, and that's the business partner's bills being paid, and that's me actually making some money from that.
And that took 3 weeks?
This happened in the last 4 weeks. What I talked about of me regenerating revenue, that was just for me personally to pay my own bills and make my own money back. That was 3 weeks of hard work. To be honest, the first 2 months was like eating pizza and shit, thinking it was vacation. So I had a wake up call after I hit 90 days. I'm like, yeah, this is going on a little longer.
You tried to wait out the storm. It didn't work out, huh?
Yeah. It's time to get on the offensive,
Nice. Yeah, well, that's sweet, dude. Less than a month from zero back to at least 19K, which is sweet. And that's a ton of money for a lot of people. But I know for you mentioned the most you mentioned was 83K for your personal net. What was your agency at gross for the most you've ever made?
I think collectively, like all the assets, the best month that we had was like 140 grand gross in a month. But yeah, and here's the funny thing is like when I say that figure, especially the people who know me, who grew up with me, like their jaw drops to the floor. So they're like, bro, I just wish I could make $500 a month from home. The thing is, like, I've started to value gross less and less and less, and it's really about net. And like where I'm at,
so true.
So where I'm at in my business and my evolution as an individual, I've really started to realize that there's no glory in hard work. There really isn't.
True.
No, like the
employee mindset to think that.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, it's something that we tell ourselves. It's a compensation to get through the suck of realizing that we don't have time in a day and we can't live our lives, but we're doing it for the money. We're hard workers, alpha male. Fuck yeah. I got on the phone with another student and he's like, yeah, dude, I did 60 grand last month and I worked 3 hours. I got so pissed, and like, I'm happy for him. Don't get me wrong, but I'm that guy that's like, good for you. And then I go like afterwards, I'm like, fuck you, I want to do that. So yeah, I started engineering that solution there, and that's where I'm at. Like where I'm at is I understand now if the agency does 100 million gross in a month, it doesn't fucking matter. Yeah. It has to be the net. It has to be the net, and that's brought me to a place where now I'm thinking about time as much as I am thinking about money. Right. The whole point, I guess, like, the big lesson that is, I think to a lot of people, they would hold me up as a big success. And in the communities I'm active, people do come to me and almost treat me like a micro guru, saying like, oh, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? I'd love to work with you, yada, yada, yada. Like I'm a big shot. I'm not. Like I am literally just like every other business owner that's learning lessons, just trying their best. And I'm on the same process that everybody else is, because where I'm at, I'm still an amateur. I'm not making enough money to sit with the big dogs. And I'm still learning the small lessons in business, which is as long as you are working, you're not a business owner. As long as you are working, you are not a business owner. If a business is going to be an asset, it's a machine. You have to systematize, you have to staff it, you have to create systems, you have to do the shit you don't want to do so that you can walk away and go to Barbados for 6 weeks and shit doesn't burn down.
Nice.
And that's, that's where I'm at. But hey, like, you have to get started to produce revenue. Those problems require money. And the one thing that I can say for fact, the program, your help, the community's help, the skills I've learned, the networking, everything has enabled me to try to learn these lessons. And these are expensive lessons to learn.
Yeah.
I would not be in a position where I could be learning these lessons and developing this way as an individual if I didn't do all the things I did of engaging the community, consuming, majority of the content that was in the course, spending time with you, investing money to actually go to, face-to-face events. All of that, albeit expenses, have been things that have helped me learn personal lessons, develop as an individual. And today, I understand that self-development is what really pays the bills. The rest, there's no formula. It's who you are as an individual and what you can bring to the table and how articulate you are in problem solving. And that's, if we had to boil it down, I think that's fundamentally it. I just have to get better at that.
Think of all the people out there. I mean, I remember when I was first getting started, I mean, before the idea even was really embraced by me to actually start, there was just a lot of, you can call it skepticism, hesitation. You might even feel limited just thinking that these kind of investments are just a lot of money when in reality, in the future, you'll look back and it's one of the best investments you can make, as you just mentioned. What would you tell somebody who's, they haven't even started an agency yet. They're just in the position where they're considering it as an opportunity and they're becoming aware of it. What would you tell that kind of person?
I mean, you're going to end up doing what you want to do anyway, so stop delaying it. If you're flirting with the idea, how long are you going to flirt until you take a bite and taste it? I've tried e-com. It wasn't for me initially. I learned my lesson, but I wouldn't have known that unless I looked at it. I tried opening up my own personal training studio. I thought it was a great idea. I flirted with it for a long time. The best thing I did was realize what I hated about it, so I stopped. I became a financial advisor. I made a fuck ton of money in a month. I hated the business, right? But I was going to college for finance. Thank God I didn't spend 6 years of my life and then an internship to find out I hated something. So at the end of the day, I think that, the biggest thing that somebody new starting out, if you're flirting with the idea of an agency or frankly any business venture, if this is one of many ideas, at the end of the day, you need to pick something and do something because one, life is really short. You don't have a lot of time for you to waste. That's one. Two is you're going to die. What do you have to lose? Paper, money is paper. The shit comes off trees. Who gives a fuck? It's arbitrary. What happens if you go $100,000 in debt and you fail? You know what you do? You declare bankruptcy, spend $1,500, get somebody wipe that from your credit. You're good. There is no lose. Is the point. It is impossible to lose. If you think you're going to lose, if you think it's actually going to cause you pain, you have to stop and analyze that because this is why people don't take action. They're afraid of losing. When you actually boil it down, you're typically afraid of losing because you're going to disappoint somebody else and they're not you. They don't run your life. And if you are making decisions because of what somebody else thinks, you're going to be miserable your entire life. So just start taking action on anything that's going to be good for you and that you think is a good idea. Because if it fails, there's financial resets everywhere in the system. We live in a world where money is in such absurd abundance that people are literally throwing shit out the window for no good reason. If you can take your little sliver of the pie, it's realistic. The limiting beliefs that I feel like somebody new that would have, based on even what I had, if you're skeptical that it's going to work, everything works. How many coffee shops exist in the world? There's new ones coming up every day and they're fine. You're going to be okay picking any model that has any support and any education. Two, you're going to end up doing what you want to do anyway. So just do it and stop wasting your time and stop making decisions based on what you think are going to make other people happy. You'll never be happy if you do that. And the third thing is what you can't lose. You just can't lose. So change the mindset and you're fine. If you think you're going to lose, don't do it. But, if you trust yourself that you are going to try to make something work, if you put your mind to it, then, if you're right here watching this and you're flirting with it, just hit the fucking buy now button and find out, frankly. I would have never found this program. I would have never found you if I stopped after I got burnt the first time. But hey, if one person can make money online, I believe that I'm a person of enough skill that I can do it too. So if it was going to cost $1,000 to find out, I was going to spend it. If it was going to cost $100,000 to find out, I'll figure out how to make the money and then I'll spend it. Because at the end of the day, money's money. It'll always be made back.
Yeah, I like that. That's really good. And I always like to weed out this crowd, okay? Would you say in any way, shape, or form a marketing agency is in the get rich quick category?
I think people definitely think so. People definitely think so. Here's like unbiased pros and cons of an agency. If you're looking for a business venture that does not require a lot of capital, this is legitimate. This is legitimate. However, if you think that this is a model that has less resistance than another business model to scale and make business money, and by business money, I'm talking 8 figures, then you need to understand that this shit is just as hard as any other model. There are so many fucking lessons that you have to learn and so many hurdles to cross that you're going to experience in any type of business model. There is no such thing as get rich quick. Stop looking for it. You need to look for a process that has some proof of successful outcomes. And as you say, at that point, it's just math time action. If you can quantify what it's going to take to get a result, then all you have to do is do the arithmetic and put in the resources required to get there. And it's simple as that. That's what an agency is.
Nice.
And what you're able to provide and what the course is able to provide is the education to be able to quantify what it's going to take to be able to see success.
And then last question for you. So now that you've started a marketing agency, like kind of touched on this a little bit, you've got all these different skills. Sounds like you narrowed down to one specific niche that you were helping out. Do you feel like if all went to shit and you had to make a massive pivot, that your skills are applicable to future businesses you might run yourself, or just skills that could truly help you, just as you already did? I mean, in another 4 weeks, you pivoted from 0 to 19K. Let's say that you just have all these skills and all this awareness now. Is it applicable to other stuff like future businesses?
Yeah, so there was a few. So first of all, I was told by everybody around me that I would be unemployable dropping out of college and doing this, right? And so the first time I went 100 to 0, I moved into a new place with my ex. I bought the place. I fronted money for the move. I basically eliminated my savings account to make it happen. And then she cheated on me and we broke up. And long story short, she actually ended up keeping all the stuff and I walked away with nothing.
Like a mini divorce, Will.
What was that?
Like a mini divorce.
Yeah, kind of actually. I had to go to a lawyer and shit. It was really fucked up. But yeah, so like when that happened, I literally had $200 to my name. And the same week that happened, I lost all my contracts. Wow. So I lost a girl, I lost my house, I lost my furniture, I lost my car, I lost my business. Wow. And in that time period, I started doing the actions to rebuild the business, and obviously that ended up happening. But the thing that I think, let's talk last resort. If all things go to shit and I had to go get a job, would I be able to go get a job that pays well? February of 2018, I applied to 200 marketing agencies across the US. A guy in Florida gave me a call, offered me $80,000 base as a 20-year-old. I still couldn't even drink. It's $80,000 a year base with a $40,000 bonus structure that could be realized on a monthly basis. Wow. With seed capital, and every business who I ran an ad account for, because he would flip it and I would profit on the flip alongside with them, with a paid relocation plan, and he would give me free lodging for the first 90 days so I got back on my feet. Employable. Yeah, I mean, people go to college for 4 to 6, even 8 years, and they don't get an offer half that. So yes, the skill set is versatile, but let me also just boil this down to the most basic thing. Marketing really is selling. There will never be a world where selling is not valued and has the highest income potential in the world. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what it is that you're selling, because we sell every day. You want to bring out a girl to a restaurant, you don't like the same restaurant, you make a fucking value proposition for which place to go to. That's sales. Sales is absolutely everywhere. And when you get better at that, people like you more because they want to be sold. They want decisive people. The people in the world that have money have too many decisions they make. They want somebody to make the decision for them. If you have that skill set, then it doesn't matter what you do. You can sell cars, you can sell lawnmowers, you can fucking sell rocks. Like, you're going to be rich.
I really appreciate all the insights here, and I'm sure everybody watching does too. And if you could just you want to give anything else to everybody that might be watching in right now? Like I said, they're in that phase where they're about to jump into this thing, probably trying to decide if it's right or not. Maybe they're pivoting to something else or actively considering stuff.
Yeah. I think the best advice that I could possibly give to somebody getting this, like if you're somebody that has a lack of experience altogether in an industry like this where money's being made remotely, or you could call it internet money's being made, right? If that's you have to understand that this is no different than a traditional brick and mortar business in terms of a business plan. This is not a way out of it. This is not a way to circumvent the system. This is a normal business. And this is the only difference is that this is something that has a lower barrier of entry because you don't have the capital intensive costs of like, a brick and mortar building. You don't have to start with 1 million staff. You, to a certain degree, you can be a technician, just learn a skill, and you can easily drum up $10,000 to $40,000 a month without hiring anybody. That's the advantage of this. So if that's you're starting off, you don't have a ton of experience with this, don't go wasting your time looking on the internet for the million ways to make money, because this is the least capital intensive way to do it that has stability. It is probably the safest internet business venture. To somebody that has a little bit more money and maybe is a little bit more articulate in terms of like business prowess, and it's not your first rodeo. The challenge with an agency is that, you need, if you're coming in with the intention to scale this thing up big, you just need to understand that you're going to need a key employee very early on to learn the skill sets that you're going to learn in this program, or learn from Jeremy, or learn from the community. You have to be able to dilute that information over to somebody else, because there's a lot that goes into this. Technology moves really fast. Each advertising platform moves really fast. It's a very fast-paced industry. So just don't be greedy. Don't be greedy trying to make as much money as you can up front. Grab an employee, teach them, enable them to succeed and live out this dream of financial freedom with logistical freedom, and scale your business from there. Just do it the right way. But honestly, at the end of the day, to anybody, if you jump in, the beautiful thing about Jeremy and the community, Jeremy has his niche, he has a skill set, but he's able to bring to the table a degree of information that you just can't buy because of the dollars that he plays with. And the individuals he plays with. You cannot buy the knowledge that you can get from an individual like Jeremy, who is in the trenches for some of the biggest advertiser spending in the world. That's a huge value add. The second value add is, the thing is though, Jeremy has a niche that he's good at. If you're a niche outside of it, typically with every other relationship that you would have with a course provider, I would know, they can't help you. They're not versatile. Jeremy's the first person I've ever come across that was aware of that. And that's why he has this community of fucking rock stars that are doing well in these other industries. And he pulls in other gurus that other people would look at as competition, but he views as an asset to give you guys the knowledge you need to succeed, even if it doesn't come directly from his mouth. I don't do personality brands. I don't do info product sales. I've been able to take a brick and mortar business, which you didn't do brick and mortar advertising. You couldn't tell me the best way to turn a random person into a gym appointment lead. But I had the resources because you helped make that available to me. And so at the end of the day, all the information and the support that you need is available in one spot. And the versatility that's there and the quality of information that's there, you're not going to find anywhere else, I guess, unless you can, like, I don't know, fucking know Mark Cuban, your best buds with him or something. Like, seriously, it would be astronomically expensive. So, whatever you guys are looking at in price tag to get in, I'm telling you, man, in 10 years from now, you're going to laugh at the fact that you were contemplating on buying on this thing. It's as simple as that.
All right, well, legendary interview, man. This is great, and it's an honor to help. I appreciate all your feedback as well. It's incredible to know the impact I've been able to have, and thank you for taking action on everything.
Yeah, just to be clear for everybody, this guy helped me literally go from living in my mom's fucking basement after going broke to being able to move out. I'm living in the most expensive zip code in my state. I live by a fucking lake. I do my emails in the morning on a fucking boat. Like, this shit is wild. And I'm not special. I'm just a hard worker who doesn't like to lose and was smart enough to pay somebody smarter than me to help. So if that's a successful action, the model do it.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sure everybody appreciates it as well. And like I said, legendary interview, man.
It was good talking, man.